Good evening, folks. That's a serious intro we got going there tonight. Welcome tonight to the Sioux Sports. We're live here tonight with Kyle Barber, the Greyhounds Eastern Ontario scout. He was with us a few weeks ago. We thought we'd bring him back to talk with the draft approaching. Now that we have a draft order, we want to see what he thinks of it and give us some names and talk about some Sioux guys, and we'll ask him a couple questions. We have Tony Bonifero with us again as usual. And Bono, if you want to start, take it away.
Sure, Kyle. Thanks for joining us. How you doing today, bud?
Good, man. It's good to be back.
Exciting time of year for you guys, I assume. This is kind of what you guys are built for, right?
Yeah, it's exciting in a way that like we're doing it almost in a bit of a compressed schedule, right? Like we weren't really sure how it was going to go, but like we've been watching film all year, and we've kind of had a lot of game reports already, so it's not like we're caught completely off guard by this, but it's kind of fun though, but it's different, right? Like we don't get to kind of hang out and listen to words of wisdom from Nick Delapenta or anything like that, but it's pretty good. So we get it through Zoom. It's not the same thing, but it's okay.
So what I wanted to talk to you about is, a lot of I'm not sure if people realize what happened this year with the OHL draft and how they figured it out. So, obviously they just did a lottery in the OHL. Every team had an equal shot at getting a high pick, or getting the first overall pick. And, the balls really didn't fall. It is a snake order draft, but, the balls really didn't fall in the Greyhounds' favor too much. Can you just talk a little bit about the process, kind of your thoughts behind it? Were you okay with it? Would you like to see something different?
Yeah, like obviously, I think it was a fair process. I think that was really the only thing they could do, and in a way, it kind of generated a little excitement of the league too. After some bad news after the season being shut down, it generated a lot of excitement. I thought, like every kid I've talked to in an interview so far has been like, "Hey, that was awesome. That was really cool." It was just like the NHL draft lottery. It was fun. Yeah. So I think that was the only way, like to make it fair. And then I guess the snake order is kind of neat. Like I do some fantasy hockey drafts, and it's just the same thing. You're like, every time I look at it, I'm like, you want to be first or last, right? So you get back-to-back picks, and the way it goes. But like for us, like it didn't fall the way we wanted in terms of like draft order, and like just watching it, like as a fan, you kind of like my kids were wearing their jerseys and everybody was around the TV all pumped up about it. Then we didn't really get a chance to get excited about it. It's like, okay, Barry goes, you're like, yes, we're in it, and then it was done.
Yeah.
And then because we own Windsor's second round pick, so we were kind of like the best play would have been for us to pick early and Windsor to pick late, so we'd maximize, like get 2 picks in the top 25. And as Windsor just wasn't going, like it was a devastating wave of emotions in my household. Like my kids were crying and they're screaming. They're like, "We're not going to get any good players." I'm like, "We'll be fine. Like, don't worry about it." But it was a neat thing, and I think, like I said, it brought a little excitement to the league. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it's true. You and I were texting back and forth a little bit throughout that, and it was obvious that it was really unfortunate. It was kind of the opposite of what we were hoping for, owning Windsor's second round pick. Going into the draft though this year, obviously not being able to see a lot of these kids. Obviously, usually the top tier, people know who the top tier kids are, right? What's your take on this draft? How difficult is it going to be not being able to see these kids play? And, do you think that you guys can still get a really impactful player late in the first round?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think we can definitely get somebody at 18 who's going to be a really good player for this franchise, and kind of hopefully set up to be a star in the Sault Ste. Marie for the next couple of years, certainly. I think it's definitely been more difficult. Like Bono, you and I have talked before that it's tough not being in the rink to scout. Like video is great, you can get different angles at it, but there's nothing like being in the rink, or you see a player and you're like, okay, I really want to focus on that kid's stride or what he does away from the puck, or he made a really smart play there, but then you've got a camera guy who's just following the puck, right? So what does he do after he makes that breakout pass, or does he drive middle, but the camera's all screwed up? So like, I know these aren't professional camera guys, they're not working on Hockey Night in Canada, but it's great that we're able to do this. Like if this had happened, like say, when I was a kid, like I don't know how anybody would get drafted, right? Like they would just be, all right, well, I just who knows who and who was really good in Bantam, and go from there. So I think we're lucky in a way that we do have some video and have something to go on. We're fortunate enough that like some of our scouts do quite a bit of Bantam scouting as well. So like if a kid is an elite level player in Bantam, like it's not always a surefire thing that he's going to be a superstar in minor midget, because a lot of kids kind of peak around Christmas, I find, in the minor midget year, and then just take off, and then you'll see guys just climb the draft list from there. But at least you have a strong background of kind of how that player was. He put up a lot of points. Like if he's a goal scorer in Bantam, chances are he's probably going to translate into a goal scorer in minor midget. So I think we've prepared ourselves enough to kind of be ready for a draft like this, and I think it's been good. So I think we're ready.
So you kind of answered my next question, but what I was going to ask you is, what would you say to people who said, hey, this year's draft is a crapshoot?
Well, I just think that's an easy way out, right? Like it's like the onus would be like if we didn't want to put any work into it, we're like, whatever, it'll just work out and maybe we'll get a mulligan on it. Then do you know what I mean? Like it's an easy thing to say, well, it's a crapshoot, but the tools are there. If you want to research, you want to call coaches, you want to do a lot of background, like nose to the grindstone type work. I think that you can find players, you can see stuff on video. Like these kids all play spring hockey, right? And they play in different spring leagues, and those have all been televised. And there's ways to find video. There's ways to kind of find out about guys. I think this is where like kids that have agents will really show their value. A lot of agents are sending us direct video to the GMs, to the scouts directly. Agents that I know are calling me, are like, you really got to take a look at like this kid. I'm like, well, I haven't seen enough of them. They'll send us video. And that's really good. Like a lot of times too, like you get a highlight film. No one's really going to put that highlight film where you sauce one up the middle and they put it in the back of your net, right? So like you kind of be like, all right, he looks pretty good in the highlight film, but like, so I'll watch it just to kind of get like a glimpse of the highlights. Like, that was a wicked shot, you know what I mean? But it's there's other times where like nothing beats like watching the actual game, because the game's not perfect, the game's not a science, it's not like doing a drill, and it's very unpredictable. So I think that's kind of what I like, but I think other guys benefit from it. And I think it's if you're willing to put the work in, it's not really just a crapshoot year. I think you can do a lot of damage in it. And the way I think it is, like if the teams that really do a good job at this, I think you'll be able to show like the guys who end up getting signed and play in the league, and maybe some other guys will be wanting the mulligan on a crapshoot year.
Yeah. So one other question. So I know you're not the Sault Ste. Marie scout. So, but obviously I know that you do, you watch a lot of video and you know a lot about a lot of different kids. So I do want to ask you about the group of kids coming out of Sault Ste. Marie. There was a list that was just released with ranking of 500 draft eligible kids, and the Sioux team here had 7 kids on that list, which was, it's been making some news up here. Can you just talk a little bit about what you think of the Sioux kids, if there's anyone that really stands out, kind of just your overall thoughts on that?
Yeah, like that, I got no problem with that, and I think like a credit is to you guys for broadcasting those games and doing play-by-play and like adding a little bit of color to it as well. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you're just watching video and there's no noise at all, and it can be really hard to watch. So I thought you guys did a great job with that, and I think the kids and the parents and certainly the coaches on that staff appreciated the work you guys did for that. So a little bit of a plug for your play-by-play career, guys. But overall, like I think the Sioux's got a pretty good team this year, and I think it would have been really interesting to watch them play in the Great North League. I think Foster's a really dynamic player. I think he's got a lot of skill. Kid I really liked in a couple of the games that I watched was a smaller player, Zimbaro, I think his name is. I thought he was really good. He was feisty. The Fellinger kids were very good as well. So I think like anytime you get named to a list of 500, like I think it's reason to be excited about it, and I think there's some credit to it as well. So I thought it was I think it's a pretty good team, and like I said, it's tough to see just an inner squad, and then I saw the one game against Nickel City, but overall I thought it was pretty good.
I really appreciate you saying that, because when we when we're doing these games, we often wonder if anybody's watching, right, or if anybody's listening, right, and especially for an exhibition game about that. Can you just talk about your thoughts on, kind of, obviously Jay's been doing this with Sioux Sports for a while, but, you mentioned the video. Do you think that helps a lot, and do you think that's something that you'd like to see incorporated a little bit more in other leagues?
Absolutely. I think if you're going to coach midget hockey now, if I'm an association that's looking to hire you, and I don't think I'll ever be working in an association side of it, but if I'm an association looking to hire a midget coach, I think that should be part of the prerequisite now. Like, we don't know if we're going to get another virus like this. We don't know if we're going to get another shutdown. We don't like, I hope it never happens again. We can all go back into the rink and just watch hockey like we normally do. But I think when I certainly coached minor midget, we videotaped every game. And I would break it down on the bus as I went into work in the morning and then send clips to individual players. So I had every game saved. Yes, it was just off an iPad that a parent shot, but at least it was good video. I could slow it down. I could zoom in. I could show a bunch of different clips. And it was just the way that, like, if anybody asked me, I could promote it. And then I had some players that were interested in NCAA and asked for a highlight package. So I put that together. They could send off to schools and different things. So I think it's going to be a requirement for coaches now. And if not, you need to maybe put it in your budget to buy a good camera or pay you guys to do it, let's say, and broadcast it. Because I think the more exposure you can give your players, the better it is. And certainly with today's tools, I don't think there's any excuse to not do it, in my opinion.
It's funny, you're talking about your midget. Before I send it over to Jim here, you're talking about coaching in midget and, putting tapes together for people and things like that. And we've talked to Jamie Henderson and things like that. And, I think from an outsider looking in, we just think, oh, midget coach or just a coach, right? But then when you talk like that, it's just the amount of time, the amount of effort, I just put together a highlight package. Like, it's no big deal, right? And, like, that's got to be hours worth of work that people don't even realize or that you don't get credit for, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit of the misconception about coaching hockey. Everybody thinks show up, run the circles a couple times, and bag skate them if they lose, and sticks in the middle of scrimmage at the end. But no, there's a lot that goes into it, and it almost becomes a bit of a way of life, right? Like you're literally just watching all the time. Like, you're trying to find ways to make your team better. You have like a little bit of a passion for it. So like, I don't know. Like, I think it's part of it, right? So it's definitely something that like I took pride in, and it like helped me prepare for other teams. Like, I would just sit there and try to like break down what other teams do, just using the game film, help our team out a little bit and be like, hey, this is why we got scored on this penalty kill. This is why our breakout wasn't working. We need to work on it. So it's just about making your team better. And I think anybody that takes like a midget coaching job, like, I'm sure Jamie would agree, like, it's more or less like a way of life for the whole season, right? Like, you're not showing up to the rink 5 minutes before or anything like that. You're there about an hour before. You're there 45 minutes after to talk to anybody that wants to talk about your players, and you take quite a bit of pride in like the guys that you end up getting drafted, or even the ones that don't. There's a couple of kids that I still talk to, and they're like, that was the best year ever. Like, it was great. We had remember when we did this, or like this happened in this tournament. Like, that's the best part about it, right? And I think these kids kind of missed out on that minor midget year a little bit too, like playing games like the OHL Cup, like the top players that play in that team NOHA, and like playing in front of like 200 scouts, like Black Jackets, and like, it's just, I remember as a coach looking up in the stands and being like, this is nuts. Like, I don't even know how these kids are doing it. And then like, you're expecting them to perform and not make mistakes, and it's just like, I think it's pretty neat. But yeah, it's just a way of life, right? Like, it's something I love to do, and maybe someday I'll get to do it again. And even like when I'm coaching novice now, like, I'll go over practice plans and be like, this isn't working. Why isn't this working? And not that it's to that same level, but it's just it's the same kind of passion, right?
That's awesome. I'm going to ask you about another local kid. He didn't play locally this year. Again, I know, and I realize I'm putting you on the spot. So if you don't know much about the player, that's fine. But Dawson Wilson, obviously a well-known kid here in Sault Ste. Marie. Pretty decent hockey player, had a pretty decent career. Like, obviously there's lots of hope that he's going to get drafted this year. But I'm just not sure if you know much about him or if you scouted him at all.
Unfortunately, I don't have a lot to comment on him right now, to be honest with you. So
okay, Again, I know I'm putting you on the spot.
If you guys got video, like I know Jay said in the chat, he's got video. Send him over. Like, we still got some time before the draft, and like I said, I'm working through. I've watched like a pile of teams, but I haven't seen everybody yet. And normally in a normal year, I'd be like, yeah, this is like 100% the report on him, but I can't give you a read on him just yet.
Absolutely. So. No problem.
But if you've got video, I'll watch it and I'll let you guys know by the end of the week. 100%.
Sounds good. All right, Jim, go ahead.
Hey, Kyle. Yeah, Jay has video on Dawson, so I think he'll probably send it to you. Can I ask you a little bit of not a controversial question because it's not on you. Jack Mateer, local boy, successful. He had a good season his first year in Ottawa. He recently won a gold medal at the big tournament there. Passed on by the Sioux Greyhounds, and he ended up going to Ottawa. I know he's very happy in Ottawa. His family's very happy. I know that the Hounds like Holmes too. They're happy with the pick there. Can you just talk about, talk about what you know about Mateer, if his name came up a little bit in the draft room, and if there's extra pressure to pick a local player, and if that factors into the draft at all?
Yeah, and I think that's probably a fair question that's going around town right now. But I think it's in another way, it's a bit unfair to compare the players too, right? Like it's like we don't necessarily know who's going to have the better OHL career or that sort of thing. But I just think like in terms of Holmes, for us, he checked a couple more boxes than Mateer did at the time, and that's not a slight against Mateer. It was just we had to make a call at a certain point, and perhaps if we were picking the same spot as Ottawa, we'd be making the same selection. And I don't necessarily think there's no bias towards like Sioux players or anything like that. Like you saw in the third round this past draft, we selected Connor Toms, and all things being equal, he was much higher on our list. And it wasn't necessarily because he was a local player, but when it rolled around to that third round pick, it was almost a no brainer. We're like, okay, we're taking him with this selection, and we're very happy to get a local player who's gonna put on that Hounds logo. Like I grew up in that city, and there's literally nothing that I ever wanted to do more than wear that jersey and go into that dressing room. And I kind of get that feeling a little bit of being a little kid when I put on my golf shirt with the logo on it, even though it's not quite the same extent. But I still kind of, and like I know like some of the guys bug me all the time. They're like, quit fanboying around the rink. Like you're just like a kid that gets a dressing room toured. You know what I mean? But it's the same kind of passion. And I can imagine every kid that grows up there that loves to play there, like would love to play there. Like I know when you spoke to Cole McKay a couple of weeks ago, like he mentioned the same thing. Like he knows the fans can be tough. He knows it can be a tough environment, but just to play in the rink and like just play for the Greyhounds is a dream come true. So I think for Tom's, that certainly worked out for him. And for Mateer, it wasn't a slight against him. It wasn't any kind of bias. Like we didn't like him, that sort of thing. Like he was in our conversations at that point, but and especially in your first round pick, you want to take the best player that you think will help your franchise win hockey games, right? Like we could draft a whole team of local guys, but if we miss the playoffs every year, I think I'll be out of a job, and a couple other guys too, right? So I think we want to win, and I think if you give it time, I think like people will start to appreciate how good Holmes is going to be. Like from all accounts, he's bigger, stronger, faster, and when he hits the ice next year, like people are going to allow him. He's going to be that. I think he'll be that number one option on the power play. He's got that big cannon of a shot. So maybe in a couple of years we'll be having a different conversation. We'll be like, yeah, you know what, that was a pretty good pick. Like Mateer was a star for the 67s, and Holmes is a star for the Greyhounds. It worked out for everybody, right? And that's kind of, I think, like the ideal situation. And like Bono, I know certainly, like if you wanted to talk about a couple local guys in the past that you ripped on, I can name names if you want, just through Facebook, but it's just okay. Like it's tough, right? Like if you're a local guy, like your mistakes are magnified a little bit more. Like you throw it around the boards and a bad bounce goes to the middle, be like, you should have known that bounce was there. You've been playing there since you were 8 years old. You know what I mean? Like it's tough to be the local boy too, and things don't go your way. But I'm glad it's working out for Mateer. I was really happy to see him win the gold medal along with every other member of Team Canada, and certainly I think like I'm sure Holmes is in consideration for that team as well, right? So like that's what I have to think, and I think he would have been in the running as well. So however it works out, however they make a team, it's great to see them win, and I was really happy for Mateer. Like I think he's billeted not too far from my house here, so it's happy to see. I see him around the neighborhood playing basketball with the local kids and stuff, so it's great.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. I just asked the question because it's a popular topic around the Sioux. I'm not trying to insult the pick. I'm not insulting the player Holmes at all. I just asked the question because it's a topic here, and I know the Mateer family is very happy in Ottawa, and his mom would tell you, and he actually told us himself he wouldn't trade it for the world. He loves Ottawa. So, but like on draft day, you know, you got Cooper Foster, say for example, and I don't necessarily mean that exact player, but I'll use him for an example. In the draft room, take us into the draft room. Will there be discussion about the fact that he's a local boy? Does that play into the decision at all? Is it a little easier to do the homework on him because he's local? Just talk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, so like we have a meeting at 8:00 tonight. It's probably like our third or fourth meeting now for draft prep, and we have a couple this week, and we'll have a couple the following week leading into the draft. So yeah, no, we certainly like we talk about the local kids a lot. Nick Delapenta is the biggest cheerleader for anybody in Northern Ontario, and he will make sure that if anybody is within consideration, they should be talked about, and often, and deservedly so, right? Like I talked about earlier, it's great to have the local kids on the team, and I think like you have Cole McKay on the team now, and Connor Tomsby on the team like the following year. I think it's great to keep that local element as well, right? But yeah, so he'll definitely be in consideration. We'll know about the local guys. It's where the list pans out. It's where we value different players, and like I could, without getting into too much trouble, I think if all things are considered equal or even close to equal between a couple of players, a local player will probably be considered. But it's just down to what the whole scouting staff evaluates, and ultimately where the decision finally lies is just what the best player for the franchise would be.
And it's funny, sorry, Jim, real quick, just to kind of piggyback on that point, Kyle, I think a player like Cooper Foster, right, is a really hard player to really get a grasp on where he could go. I mean, there was talk last year of him being, potentially a second-round pick, late first-round pick, but then you read some of the things now and they're talking, fifth, sixth round potentially, right? Or even, because there was no season this year. So it's just so hard to tell, right? And you don't know where that draft board's going to fall. And that's kind of where I was talking earlier on about the crapshoot. You sincerely don't know how teams value certain players.
Right, or what access they have to video, or how much homework they've done, right? Or like maybe they've really liked guys from like I know a lot of agents have been running showcase skates in different areas where like were in the green zone, or they were able to run these skates, and parents were told they weren't allowed to go into the arenas, and we were able to go in. So it was a good opportunity to evaluate some talent as well. But like you don't know, and that's just the thing, right? Like, and right now, and sitting in 18, you're trying to call as many people as possible to find out who's picking who, and like where the order is going to be, and that sort of thing. Is a little bit of games before games, whereas last year we really didn't have to do that too much, picking at 4. But I'm pretty comfortable with it now because of the success of the Greyhounds. We've been picking late most of the time, right in the first round. So like sometimes like 21st, 20, 18. Like I'm pretty comfortable with picking late, but it's kind of it'll be fun the next couple of weeks, just kind of see like where guys go, and like there's always one or two surprises where like a team will really covet, say something like a big body or big size or something that we may not, and be like, oh, well, that was different than what our list was. And there's always a couple players that we end up getting potentially later that we may have really high on our list, like say in the top 25, maybe we're getting them in like third or fourth round. So it's I find it's always a bit of a crapshoot, but it certainly could be a big wild card on draft day this year.
I'm going to put you on the spot here again before I hand it over to Bono. I assume that at some point in your life you played hockey with Tony Bonifero. Can you give me a scouting report on Bono? And if he was eligible for this draft, would you be banging on the table for the Hounds to pick him or no?
Certainly, I remember playing against him. He was in the Pee Wee program, if I remember, and I was in the what now defunct SRHA, and I literally would stay away from Tony Bonifero as much as I could. Like he was the same size now as he was like when he was 9 years old. He was that big, and I remember when the head checking penalty came out. He was the easiest guy in the world to play against because like all they want to do is call a head check. So you would skate near Bono, fall down, and like arm up, 4 minutes head check. He led the league in penalty minutes. You didn't throw one body check all year. But Bono was a very good player though. But like his size definitely helped him. I'd be banging the table at a certain point for Bono. Maybe not early, but there'd be a point for him for sure. He's a good guy in the room too, right? Like you can't break those intangibles.
Yeah, he's a good guy in the room.
I see Eric Carrier, an old buddy of ours that we've played quite a few games with Eric and Jason, commenting. So what's up, Eric? Good to see you too, bud.
Yeah, good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, oh, that's great. So one thing too, Kyle, that I was kind of thinking about this a little bit, listening to you talk, and this is more specific, but obviously with different teams play different systems, right? So do you find as a scout, do you find it frustrating watching players play in a system because it's harder to get a read on their game? Or is that, like, how do you differentiate between, hey, this is a good player, just, not really working in this system, or he could be better in a different system? Does that have a lot of say in how you guys scout?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think early in my scouting career, I would do a lot of just ripping other minor midget coaches because I had done it in the past, and like you'd get to guys that would play the trap or the 1-3-1 or dump a lot of pucks in, and you're just like, listen, I'm trying to evaluate whether your players can attack off the rush. Like, stop dumping pucks in. So I think earlier in my career, I found it like a lot more frustrating that like when you would scout teams that didn't play the way we did. And so you're trying to make an interpretation whether they could fit into your system. But I think the more you learn how to evaluate like the player's actual tools and their hockey IQ. So if they make a great decision within their system, you can evaluate that as a good hockey decision, right? Like, and then that should be translatable into a different hockey system. Like, I was getting this argument with guys in novice. They're like this year we had split ice, so we had like 2 teams at 10, and there's one team in particular like they would work on breakout and defensive zone coverage, and I was just like, okay, we're gonna do all skating and crossovers and like stick handles, and so by like the end of the year, like they wouldn't even touch the puck at the end when we do scrimmages against them because I found that they wasted a year of development. Whereas like I think systems are like, you watch the Team Canada guys, like they played a different system that I think everybody was used to. They showed up there. If they're skilled enough, they can adapt to a system. So I think skill development is paramount. So once I started to kind of get away from being like, I'm a better coach than that guy, or that guy who runs a terrible system, it was a lot easier for me to just focus on the actual tools and intangibles of the player. And if he makes great decisions with it, like I think he's got good hockey sense, then he's following the system and he's listening to his coach. And so yes and no, like it's great to see them play the same way as our, okay, this is awesome. They play the way we play. We can do it that way. But
I want to talk a little bit before we get into the NHL quickly. I just wanted to talk about the import draft. The Greyhounds kind of got really lucky there, with the 4th overall pick, I believe. Is that right? In the import?
I believe it's 6th.
Or 6th, sorry, 6th. I knew it was high. How do you guys scout import players? How does that whole process work? I've always been fascinated by that. There's, you look over there and there's, so many different countries, so many different players, right? How do you guys scout and kind of who runs that aspect?
Well, most of that is the GM's job, to be perfectly honest with you. A lot of that happens. Jay, I just saw your question. I'll get to a second. So a lot of that happens essentially like at the NHL draft and that U18 tournament, to be perfectly honest with you. So like there's a lot of evaluation, and then like at the NHL draft, those European agents are usually there, right? Okay. So like as a staff, like I've been fortunate enough to go to the draft for the 99 age group in Chicago, and you see a lot of like conversations happening with agents and guys promoting other guys, and it's the same sort of deal. Like you need to see video on this guy. You talk to somebody who knows this guy, who knows a different guy, who knows that guy's agent. So I'm not really too sure how all these import drafts come together and how Kyle has time to evaluate it, but certainly I think he's done an awesome job evaluating imports in the past couple of years, and the fact that he gets to pick this early, I think this could be a massive win. Like after a day where we thought the lottery was completely against us, and to have like a number 6th overall pick, I think that we could end up getting with another impact player to the organization. Like, bringing in guys like Sandin in the past, and like Pitlick, I thought was an excellent player on the OHL. Malik was a very good goaltender as well. So like his track record for bringing guys in has been really good. So I'm looking forward to seeing what it does. But long-winded answer that I don't really know, but I know there's a lot of like that NHL draft's important for that. So there's a lot of guys that like talk, and there's a lot of meetings that go on behind the scenes. And I was just there to kind of hang out in Chicago. So.
Before you answer Jay's question, and again, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but we already have 2 pretty impactful imports, right? So this has been a little bit of talk here in the Sioux as well. What good is that pick if you already have 2, very valuable high-end import players right now?
Yeah. So like, I don't know what the status is with either of them. So I know there was, like potentially one of them may not be coming back, but I don't know which one. So like I haven't asked that question. That's above my pay grade.
One of them's not coming back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I believe Pitlick signed pro in the Finnish league. So
okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that was common knowledge or not, but I saw it on Twitter, so I'm not sure.
Yeah,
but so if he's not coming back, then we can make that
That is-
six overall selection, and then maybe we
Yeah.
just pass at 66, right? Like
Yeah.
And if we have Malik and say a 6th overall impact player, like maybe that Matvey Michkov guy is sticking around or something like that, or someone like him. You know what I mean? Like I don't think he's eligible for another year, but like if you get a player like that who come in and be a game breaker, like certainly adding that to your franchise as a 6th overall import draft pick is almost just as good as picking like in the top 5 in the regular draft.
Right.
Jay, on your U18 question, the U18 draft is pretty well done the same way. So we'll watch midget throughout the year as we do minor midget, and I think certainly the kids that play on teams like the Ottawa plays in the league plays in the U18 loop, as well as like the Sioux will play a U18 team as well. So like we can kind of get 2 birds with 1 stone at the same time. So I can see a lot of guys that play midget hockey and be eligible in that midget draft. Also, like our scout Mike Mackley, who does the ATA area, he watches a lot of midget hockey, so like he's on it, and a lot of guys are plugged in. They'll watch midget, and I think we've had pretty good success finding players in midget in recent history. Like Matty Villalta came in the year before the midget draft, and certainly that was a pretty good free agent pickup, right? Like I think that one panned out pretty good. So it's you kind of got to watch for everybody, and if you can find that free player without having to give up an asset, I think that's just a massive win for your team. So certainly it's something we take great pride in, and the kids who get selected in it, I think they should be proud too, because they had a great second year playing midget and they got an opportunity to come into OHL camp. So I think there's a lot of value to it.
So to put you on the spot one more time here, obviously positions are a huge deal, right? And I know you don't want to say too much probably, but, obviously I have to ask the question. Is there kind of a position that you guys are focusing on in the draft this year that you'd like to kind of shore up a little bit with the losses and with the way things are going? Is there a certain direction you guys are looking?
I wouldn't overly say so. It's usually best player available and best fit, right? Like, obviously, like we took 2 defensemen in a row with O'Rourke and Holmes, and then we took Mcconnell Barker last year. So maybe another forward, but maybe another D. Like I don't know. I just think you can't have enough good defensemen at times too, and then. Yeah, like just the way the Hounds play, if you have more like elite forwards that can play with speed that come at you in waves off the rush, like it's very hard to defend, right? Like it's just it's steady. Like you watch like a couple of years ago, like every line was a scoring threat when we went to the finals, and like I know like Keefe's last year in the league, like I remember talking to you about it being like I wasn't even on staff then. You were like just watching this team, you're like speed big, like fast. Like if they're small, they're fast and they're coming at you, and it's just one after the other. So I think the way we play, if you just get a player that's going to fit within the mold really well, like I think it'll just be an asset going forward. So not really leading one way or the other just yet. We still got a bunch more meetings.
Yeah, us talking about that, every time we talk about that or you bring that up, I mean, I'll remember this for the rest of my life. A player like Zach Sinishin playing on the 4th line, scoring, 30 goals or something that year. Like it was just unbelievable, right?
Yeah, and then he's first round pick in the NHL draft coming off the 4th line.
I know. It doesn't happen every day. I know. No, that's great. And you know what? Listening to you talk, O'Rourke is one of my favorite players I think the Greyhounds have drafted in the last 10 years. I love everything about his game. And the way you're talking about Holmes too, I think there's a lot of Greyhound fans really excited to see those 2 guys on the ice together. That's a formidable pair, arguably 2 of the best, one of the best 1-2 D combinations in the OHL. Would you agree? Potentially?
I would say so. Like I think like O'Rourke for sure, I think should be in consideration to play in the World Junior team this year. Like I know he was invited to camp last year and wasn't successful, but like that's a guy that's really hard to play against. That's a guy that just knows how to win, right? Like he played up with those whippy teams that always won. He was in the finals of the OHL Cup in his draft year. Like he just knows how to win, and he's a tough guy to play against. So I think that's why like he wears the C. Started wearing the C at a really young age at 17 in the Hounds, right? Like, and then like Holmes would be the same thing. So I think that would be really good. And then if you add those like those overagers potentially that could come back. You have Kalisti that could come back. You have Constantinu. Like that blue line's in really good shape going forward. And then Bruzatowski, we just signed this week. He's an 03, but he's a really dynamic offensive defenseman. We got Tom's coming. There's a couple other kids that from that 03 draft that could make a push to make the team. Like I think like training camp's gonna be deadly. Like I think like people should come to watch. If you're allowed to watch, come into camp and watch. Like it's going to be a good camp because like there's a lot of spots there and there's a lot of good prospects waiting to come in. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So hopefully if COVID rules permit, we're a lot of people in the rink, and hopefully I get to come up too because I love training camp.
Cal, can you give us an update on McConnell Barker? I know you didn't get to see him much this year, but how did he spend his season? And have an update on his progress and or anything like that?
I don't have too much of an update. Like I know he was on like all the Zoom calls with the team, and he was on the ice privately in his home in London. So so my understanding is that he used the year to get bigger, faster, stronger, and he's gonna be a lot of fun to watch. Like certainly with his skill set and where we coveted him in the draft, he was one of our number one targets going into the draft. Like if we even were picking maybe second overall, we probably would have drafted the same player. So potentially even first, right? Like we really liked him and we think it was going to be a good fit. Like he's a tall center, but if he puts on a little bit of strength and goes with his speed and his ability to make plays at speed off the rush, like he's going to be really dangerous. And I think coming the year, like as a bigger, stronger rookie now, like he's going to almost be able to make an impact right away, and will probably be his NHL draft year too, right? So hopefully he has a great year.
I think there was a question there with players signing with AHL teams for 2021. How confident are you that they'll come back or potentially stay? I don't even know if you can answer that, but it's a good question.
Well, like my understanding is that the transfer agreement still holds true. So if you're under the age of 20, and you're signed to an OHL contract as well, I think you have to come back and play with your OHL team. So these guys that are getting like ATOs and PTOs and have the opportunity to play in the AHL, I think it's awesome. Like I think it's great. Like they're able to skate every day. They can make a little bit of money. And like certainly we weren't able to play this year or even practice, right? So I think it was a good opportunity for them. But I'm not too worried about guys leaving unless they're in their overage year, right? And if that's the case, then that's always been their opportunity. Like you look at players like Bunting, who's had an awesome year, like the year after Keefe was gone, like Bannister's first year, we could have got Bunting back and a couple other guys, right? Like it's always like those guys just were too good. Like they were developed too well. Like we lost McCann that year as well, right? Like that's another big piece. Like the team was okay. They upset Sarnia in round one, but you can imagine how good they could have been with those two guys. Just those two guys alone could have been a major impact. So
difference makers, yeah,
absolutely.
Listen, Kyle, I could talk to you all day. I know we all could. We all have so many questions, and we really appreciate how candid you are with us. I mean, you're, when you every time you come on the show, people are very complimentary of just the way you explain things and kind of the way that you break things down. You give us a behind the scenes look, and it's really appreciated. So we thank you very much for that. The one thing I want to get from you before we let you go, because I know you got to prep for your 8:00 meeting. NHL playoffs are starting. We did an NHL preview show a couple days ago. What are your overall thoughts on the NHL playoffs this year? And give us your pick for your Stanley Cup champion this year.
I don't know. Like watching the games last night. Like that Florida game was awesome. Like that was amazing. It was great to see fans in the stands. Like I don't know. I'm a pretty diehard Leafs fan, so like I would love to see them kind of like I think they'll dust the Habs, knock on wood that we don't have any Carey Price miracles happening here, but I think they'll get through. And then who doesn't want to see McDavid play Matthews in a series right now, right? Like I think that could be an unbelievable second round. And then but ultimately I think like one of maybe your bigger American teams might be the ones that pull it off. Like I think Colorado would be a really tough out in the playoffs. Like Tampa Bay with their like 19 million over salary cap team that's rolling in. If they don't get beat up by Florida in round one, it's amazing to see what Florida's doing without Ekblad too. Like Quenneville has got to be in consideration for the next Olympic team head coaching job, just the job he's done with Florida, right? And especially using an impact player like Ekblad. So I think that'll be it. But like I think whoever wins that Florida series, maybe Colorado, maybe Vegas, and then like I'm pulling for Toronto coming out of the North. Like I think that would be really good.
So it's funny because on our show, I kind of talked a little bit about this this Leafs team reminds me a lot of the Greyhound team with like Nick Ritchie and D'Angelo and those types of things. And it's almost like the same moves that Dubas made with the Greyhounds, taking a guy like Nick Ritchie, he made this year, picking up a guy like Foligno, right? And then what ended up happening, McDavid just crushed us, and we couldn't get past McDavid. So I'm really curious to see the adjustments, if Keefe makes any adjustments this year, because there was a lot of controversy here in the Sioux that Keefe didn't make the adjustments necessary to stop McDavid. So it'll be neat to kind of see that in the next round if it ends up happening, especially because of the relationship that we have with the Greyhounds, right? And kind of the similarities and the continuity there. So I think that'd be interesting. I think it'd be a great series.
I think so. I think Raftis obviously I think made the right moves and put the team together, getting Richie and D'Angelo, and so I think that'll be I think Keefe maybe learned from that a little bit, but no one's really been able to stop McDavid when he's going and has a little bit of a supporting cast. Like that Erie team is pretty good. Like even losing McDavid the following year, they were the number one team in the OHL, right? They went to the Memorial Cup final, so it's not like they were a horrible club and we got beat by one guy. It's just I look back to that series, and it was the year before I joined the staff, and you look at how good that Hounds team was. I think they beat Oshawa and potentially win the Memorial Cup. I just think at that certain point in the playoffs, Erie was a tough out, and it just didn't work out right. But so it'd be interesting. I don't know, Joe Thornton was billeted at a really good buddy of mine's house, as you know, Bono. And I remember seeing him the first day he came to the Sioux. He walked into the house, and we're all like, "How big is this guy? How old is he?" And now you see him walking around with that massive beard, and how great would it be to see him win a Stanley Cup, right? I'm sure he'll be another one of those numbers that gets retired up at the Gardens too. So I think that's another cool thing about the Greyhounds. You look up and nobody's got an OHL roster like that in the rafters.
It's funny you talk about, and I've told this story about Joe Thornton countless times. It's one of my favorite stories, but obviously we know where he was billeted. And if you remember his first year here, he was a tall, skinnier kid, right? And there was a stretch where he did not play well. And I don't remember, I think I don't know if he was benched for a couple games or something happened, right? And he was told that he had to get stronger. And I remember hearing stories from those people, his billet family, that it was right in the middle of winter, and he woke up at 6 a.m. before school and went out and started shoveling driveways in the neighborhood for 2 weeks straight to try and get stronger, right? And try and put on some muscle. And that was kind of how he did it, right? So I agree with you. I'd love to see, I'm not a Leafs fan by any means, but I am a Leafs fan right now because I want to see them do well because of the Sioux connection. So we'll hopefully we can have something to celebrate.
Absolutely. And there's tons of stories you can tell about Joe and just seeing him around, playing NHL 97 with him. I remember watching the World Cup in 96, sitting next to them in the my buddy's basement there, and him saying this won't happen when I'm on the team. And they played the World Cup in 2004, and he was the MVP of the finals, and you're the final game, you're that's pretty cool. He called it, right? 8 years later, that's amazing. So,
that's awesome. I know. Yeah. All right, Kyle. We'll let you go because I know you got to prep for your next meeting. But we'd love to have you on maybe after the draft and just kind of talk a little bit about your take on it. And we really appreciate you doing this, man. We really do. Thank you so much, and best of luck going forward.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys bringing me on again. That was a lot of fun the first time, and certainly got a lot of positive feedback about it too. So anytime you guys want to talk, just send me a text, Bono. You know where to find me. And it's always great talking to people in Sault Ste. Marie. Can't wait to get back up there this summer and hopefully back on the ice. So thanks again, Jim. Thanks a lot, Jay. I know you're watching.
Kyle.
Thanks
nice
again, buddy.
You. Good luck in the draft.
Yeah, thanks very much. Take care, guys.
Yeah, you too. Jim, again, just your overall thoughts.
Well, I mean, I love talking to Kyle. I never knew him before like you did, but he seems like a really good guy, and he doesn't shy away from questions, and I like that. And he knows enough to say what he should say and what he shouldn't say, and I love the insight what's going on in the draft room, and he gave you a pretty generous scouting report on you, but because I think he was trying to be nice. But
that's right.
I'm gonna get a real scouting report. I asked Chico Amaral about you as a player. He actually says you're pretty good too. So I'm starting to wonder maybe we're a pretty good player. I don't know.
I'll bring the stats. So for my AA year, I led the league in scoring by, I think it was 35 points. I was actually a pretty decent hockey player. People compared me to Phil Esposito. I would literally just put him in that. That's what I was when I played that. No one would move me, and I just put everything in.
In that matter, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But no, I agree with you about Kyle. You kind of asked him a tough question about Mateer, And I love the way that he answered it, just really professional and didn't shy away from it either. So again, I think that just bodes well for the whole Sioux Greyhound organization too, right? It shows that the organization is open and honest and just really nice to see.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's such an easy take to say, well, why didn't you take the guy from the Sioux? And I mean, I love Jack Latier. He's a great kid. We had him on, and he comes from a great family.
Amazing.
The Hounds have to have an obligation to take who they feel the best player at the time is. And if Latier ends up being better, God bless him, right? Because that's great, right? So
yeah. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Jim, before we go, I just want to get your take on the NBA playoffs coming up. The NBA playoffs start this week, and just kind of your overall take on what the NBA is doing and playing tournament, that type of stuff.
I think it's classic. The NBA play-in tournament. And funny thing is, Bono, they're using the page playoff system from that they use in curling, right? They used to use it in curling. They don't use it anymore. The page playoff system: 7 plays 8. Loser plays the winner. 7. The winner gets in. The loser plays the winner of 9 versus 10. The loser of 9 versus 10 is out. So it's kind of fun. The obvious take on that is the LeBron James angle. I am a LeBron James fan because I stopped a few years back hating great players. He's a great player. He's a great athlete. I know he likes to be controversial, but he's a great player. The one funny thing I think about it is the Lakers, who are one of the best teams in the NBA. They kind of tanked the season, right? They did a lot of what you call in the NBA now load management, where they rested guys. LeBron missed a lot of games, Davis missed a lot of games, and so on and so forth. And now they find themselves in the 7-8 game against Curry and a pretty tough Warrior team.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny. And then, like 2 weeks ago when the Lakers finally hit 7, LeBron comes out and says how stupid the play-in tournament is. And he hadn't said a word about that before that. So, I think hopefully it teaches teams, maybe we should take the season a little bit more serious. There wasn't a lot of fans in the stands, but if I'm going to looking at the NBA schedule and the Lakers are coming to town and I spend money, I want LeBron in the lineup, right? So I think it's kind of funny. I love the NBA. I love the late night games. I love to watch the 10 o'clock Utah or Portland or wherever rolls in at those late games. I always like watching those after everyone settles in my house. So I know you're not an NBA guy. NBA is a funny thing where the best players win, right? I saw an argument on the other day where LeBron's championships are better than Brady's championships, and to me that's just a silly statement because NBA 2-3 stars and you have a great team. The NFL is the absolute team thing, but the NBA has a series. It's easier to lose one game. Normally the better team's going to win 4 out of 7. So. I'm kind of rambling on here, but I think there's some interesting stuff going on. What's your take on the NBA, Bono?
So the NBA to me is my least favorite league of all the professional sports. And the reason is simple. At the beginning of every season, you can I'll be generous and say you could take 4 teams and there's a 99% chance that one of those 4 teams is going to win the championship. It is the most anticlimactic professional sports league out there. The only time you can make the argument that a team won was the Raptors, right? When they kind of came out of nowhere and took that title. But even so, they were pretty powerful. The NBA, any league where 80% of your games are completely meaningless. When there's a game when, Milwaukee plays Detroit or, like Dallas is playing San Antonio, the game means nothing. The game literally means nothing because neither team has a chance to win. Right, like to win the NBA title or to even maybe win a playoff series. It's just really frustrating to me the lack of just kind of parity in the league and how the players run the league. And I know that they're doing well money wise, that type of stuff. To me, it's just anticlimactic because in the NBA you will never see an 8 seed beat a 1 seed in a playoff series. You'll never see it. It won't happen. It happens in hockey every so often. It even it happens in other sports. It's just frustrating to me that the NBA is as popular as it is when it's so boring and so many games are completely meaningless.
It's interesting though, Bono. You actually could see a 7 seed beat a 2 seed this year if the Lakers are the 7 seed.
Yeah.
They get Phoenix. Phoenix is a good team. Don't get me wrong, but they could definitely beat them. Interesting thing you bring up the Raptors there. Raptors to me, I mean, I'm a Raptors fan. It's probably the only Toronto team I like, probably because I enjoyed their playoff championship run so much. I find what they did this year really, really disappointing. I mean, they come in, they don't trade Lowry, which hopefully they got a sign-in trade lined up for him, or he's coming back. And then they tank after. They go right in the tank. They had a big game against Washington, who was 2 games ahead of them. Washington was the 10 seed, chance to get in the playoff, and Lowry didn't play.
The healthy scratched him.
Didn't play. Siakam didn't play. Like they wanted to lose to get in the lottery, and I mean, I don't understand that. So to me, it's going to be really interesting to see how this Lowry plays out. If he walks for nothing, it's terrible.
Terrible.
They already let Kawhi walk for nothing, and I get that because they gave Kawhi a big pitch and he ended up leaving. That was worth the gamble. That was how they won the championship. Lowry, who is the heart and soul of the franchise, like him or not, he's a super leader. He plays hard, and it looks like he might walk away for nothing because you hear reports that he wants to go to Miami and stuff like that. So unless they have a sign-in trade lined up, they really mishandled it to not trade him and then tank after intentionally. And you know, I think the last 2 years since they won, I'm not sure how good a job Masai has done. Masai is up for a new contract too. I know that's controversial because he built a championship team, but I'm not sure the last 2. You know, last year after Kawhi left, they had no big scorer, and this year they went in basically with the same thing. They didn't even replace Gasol and the other big man there that left. They didn't really replace them, and they struggled, and they had a terrible season. I know they weren't playing at home, and I know all that stuff, but you know, I think that's an interesting topic. What do you think of the Raptors, Bono?
Yeah, I agree with you to a degree. The one thing I will say about the Raptors is they do kind of get a free pass for me. I think that home court advantage in Toronto is something that doesn't get talked about enough. You know, playing at the ACC in front of everybody, that is an amazing atmosphere. And for these players to have to play, you know, where they are, they're away from home, no fans. That's got to be tough to get up for every game. I agree with what you're saying about Messiah. My thing about him, though, is he has about a 5-year free pass for me. And I'll tell you why. The reason being is the intestinal fortitude it took for him to trade a guy like DeRozan at the time, and the way he pulled that trade off,
Absolutely.
And the guts that had to take. Can you imagine that? Trading a guy who's just beloved in Toronto. Everyone loves him. He's a great player. He's the face of the franchise, and you're trading him for
at the time there was talk that Kawhi wasn't going to play at all. Right?
That's right, not play at all. And you have the guts to make that deal, you know, and bring in that player. I have so much admiration and respect for that. That is putting your neck on the line, right? And there was all sorts of talk about, he told Duran he wasn't going to get traded and all this kind of stuff. I don't care about that. The fact he was able to pull that move off, he has about a 5-year window for me where I'm going to give him a free pass because I think that he deserves it.
And I'm okay with you saying that. But to me, he's used 2 years of those 5 now because the last 2 years, I don't think he's done a great job. And you're right about them not playing at home. I saw Fred VanVleet this morning. He said that he liked being in Tampa. It was fun. It was nice, but it's not where they belong. Yeah. And he really likes being in Toronto. Hopefully, with vaccines rolling out and stuff like that, next year they can play at home and everything goes back to normal. But one topic I want to bring up, Bono, away from the NBA is on our NHL playoff preview show. Yeah. We laughed at the Kucherov prop bets, 3.5 goals, 7.5 points, and he looked awfully good yesterday. And I'm in a super fast game. And they were saying I was reading this morning that they said Kucherov's been healthy for a month, and that the only reason he couldn't come back is because of the salary cap implications. He was IR'd. Kyle mentioned it when he was on. Yeah. They are now $17 million over the salary cap, but it doesn't matter in the playoffs because the players don't get paid, right?
That's right.
They stashed him, and he comes back, and he looked really good. And you know, one day into the playoffs, and we're wrong already, maybe.
That's right. I'm actually curious. We're going to have another show with Dom DeLuca coming up, and I'm going to ask Dom, if he thinks that this Tampa Bay team is going to be the reason that law or that rule changes. I don't know how it would look. I don't know how you change it. I don't know how you do it fairly. But you're right. What are they? You said there's 17 million over the top.
That's what they were saying this morning. Oh. The Leafs are over too, but not with the same caliber of player. But
no, not even
they're
close.
Over because they can bring Anderson back now, and Riley Nash was hurt. He has a fairly big salary. So I mean, it's not the same caliber player, but I'm not blaming the teams. They're playing the system, right? They're doing what they got to do, right? And but you know what? I agree with you. That's a really good point you make there, Bono. Is Tampa Bay going to be the reason why they changed that rule, or are they just going to let it go? And if you want to stash a guy, you stash a guy. It's a good point.
Because also you have to give Tampa. I almost credit Tampa Bay and Kucherov, because Kucherov has to want to do that too, right? If he's healthy a month ago, how many guys are going to say, "Okay, just sit me for a month"? Kucherov deserves some credit for that. And it's almost like Bill Belichick kind of outsmarting the system. That's almost what I feel like Tampa Bay did right now. Yeah. Like, really.
Yeah, you're right. And it's kind of right. It's a rule that you're kind of stretching the rule, right? But it's a rule there. It's there for everybody. And they used it. And they're it'll be interesting. There's some good games on tonight. Jay's just saying now that it's 1-1 in the Tampa-Boston game. Big game. Boston's going to have to win there.
Boston-Washington.
So I'll go watch that when we're done here. I think we're on tomorrow night with DeLuca, so
sounds good.
He shaved his beard off too, so I think I bugged him too much about the white in there, and he got embarrassed. So,
that's awesome.
About that. He likes to talk, so we'll get him.
I know. All right, Jim. Well, thanks so much, man. Love doing this with you. Nice seeing you again. And Jay, hopefully Jay feels better and he can join us next week. The show's not the same without him. So, Jay, I know you're out there, and hopefully you get back next week, bud.
Yeah, thanks, Bono. Always a pleasure, and I'll see you tomorrow night.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.